beginning, airlifters were small, barely big enough for a few brave paratroopers and a kit bag of gear. Today, things are different. A few paratroopers have become hundreds, and kit bags are now tanks and helicopters. The enormous requirements of modern warfare have created today's airlifter fleet. They transport airborne assault forces by the hundreds, and hundreds of tons of today's most sophisticated battlefield equipment. They are the largest aircraft ever flown. They can fly far enough and carry enough cargo to build a city for 500,000 people in the most remote place on Earth, delivering troops and supplies whenever and wherever they're needed. This is the airlift mission. World War I added the airplane to the arsenal of battlefield weapons. But armies didn't experiment with air mobile warfare until the Roaring '20s. The US, France, Italy, and especially the Soviet Union were paratrooper pioneers. The first Soviet paratroopers were wing walkers, stepping carefully through the struts and wires of their fragile Polikarpov PO-2 biplanes before launching themselves into the sky. By the early 1930s, the Soviets had dropped hundreds of paratroopers, along with their machine guns and light artillery. Soviet strategists were piecing together the puzzle of airborne assault, matching the probabilities of a safe jump with the lowest possible altitude, calculating how much weight each paratrooper could carry, and figuring out the best training for this new type of soldier. How about sliding down the wings of the Tupolev AN-T-20 transport before hurtling to the ground? Soviet airlift experiments in the 1920s and 30s concentrated on moving troops quickly, attacking suddenly and by surprise. These experiments set the stage for the world's first successful paratroop unit, the German Fallschirmjäger. The Germans refined nearly every aspect of paratrooper training and strategy. In addition to basic training, Fallschirmjäger recruits learned how to jump, and even more difficult, how to wrestle a runaway parachute to the ground in a high crosswind while strapped into the harness. German jumpers learned to pack the chutes on which their lives depended, clearing, coiling, and packing the lines that had to run free if they were to survive the jump. The Junkers 52 trimotor ferried the German jumpers to the front, 13 at a time. They were highly successful. Spring 1940. The German blitzkrieg stormed across Western Europe. The Fallschirmjäger were key to swift Nazi victories in the Low Countries. A year later, the German jumpers won another major victory, their last. Spring 1941. The German invasion of Greece forced Allied troops to withdraw to Crete. German High Command decided to chase the Allies all the way across the Mediterranean. On May 20th, the 7th Paratroop Division was dropped, along with weapons stored in sealed canisters. The paratroopers' mission, to secure key locations in advance of amphibious landings by the main German battle force. The retreating Allied troops, the Germans believed, wouldn't give them much of a fight. They were wrong. In fact, the Allies put up a bruising battle that nearly repulsed the German attack. Finally, though, the Allies were defeated, forced to retreat to Egypt. The Germans paid a high price for their victory. Many Fallschirmjäger were killed or injured while landing on the island's rocky landscape. In all, nearly 7,000 Germans were killed. 44 airlifters were destroyed. As a result, Hitler barred any further large-scale airborne operations for the rest of the war. The Fallschirmjäger were out of a job, and the Germans abandoned airlift to the Allies. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill had served as Britain's air minister in the late teens and early 20s. He still believed in the airlifters' ability to drop a powerful strike force in critical and otherwise inaccessible areas. That's why Churchill approved Britain's first paratrooper unit in early 1941, even before the German assault on Crete. British paras trained furiously, seizing the airborne momentum from the Nazis' moribund force. The British practiced their jumps from the reversioned Armstrong-Whitworth-Whitley, a small twin-engine light bomber, considered good enough only for dropping propaganda leaflets. In its reversion form, the Whitley could carry 10 jumpers plus their dispatcher. Its big wings and low stall speed gave the paras a steady platform for more precise jumping. British paras also benefited from advanced parachute design. 2 body attachments instead of 1 made the chute much easier to steer in the air, but no less difficult to wrangle on the ground. In addition to improved jumper technology and training, the Allies vastly expanded the other half of the airlifter mission, airborne equipment. They had learned the lesson of Crete. Jumpers needed heavy equipment to defend themselves and to seize the military objective. Like the Germans, the British used canisters to drop machine guns and anti-tank grenade launchers. But they didn't stop there. The British went on to develop specialized airborne heavy equipment, like the well bike. Tiny but mighty, this collapsible 2-stroke motorcycle zoomed away from the drop zone at 30 miles an hour. The Allies knew that to win the war, airlift would need to carry many more troopers and much more heavy weaponry. To meet these expanded airlift needs, the British developed a new glider, Airspeed's Horsa. The Horsa could transport either troops or cargo. The aircraft held up to 25 jumpers plus their dispatcher. Loading crews pulled and pushed up to 8,000 pounds of weaponry on board, jeeps, anti-tank guns, and handcarts. Even this combat-ready folding bicycle. At a much lighter weight, the glider floated off the runway, while the tug finished taxiing and took off. On approach to the target, the glider pilot released the tow rope from the plane's nose. Using the flaps and rudder, the pilot banked the aircraft, plummeting into the combat zone at 100 miles an hour. The troops huddled in the fuselage braced themselves for the abrupt jolt and the heart-stopping skid as the glider hit the ground at 60 miles an hour. Britain's paratrooper training plane, the Whitley, began a new mission as a glider tug. Along with the C-47 Dakota, or as the troops called it, a collection of rivets flying in formation. The Horsa gliders and their tugs flew crucial airlift missions throughout the war. They delivered men and material to the shores of Sicily in April 1943 and to the beaches of Normandy on D-Day, June 6, 1944. The gliders performed brilliantly in these operations. They were the vanguard force in a series of critical battles. But their greatest victory came in the following year as part of the largest Allied airborne operation in the European War. March 23rd and 24th, 1945. Allied ground forces in France and fleets of aircraft over Britain were poised to invade Germany across the Rhine River, ready to deliver the knockout punch to Hitler's Germany. Towed by British Halifaxes and American Flying Fortresses, hundreds of gliders carried the men and equipment needed to support the operation's initial parachute landings. Now defending their homeland, German forces mounted a ferocious defense, attacking the defenseless gliders and their crews, and inflicting heavy losses on the Allies' airborne armada. Despite the casualties, men and arms were delivered where they were needed. Nearly 1,700 transport planes, 1,400 gliders, and over 1,000 fighter escorts participated in this crucial Allied breakthrough. Continuing airlift support, particularly in maintaining supply lines, helped the Allies push across Germany in only 6 weeks. forcing the Nazi surrender, the end of the war in Europe, in May 1945. Airlift had finally come of age. Britain's military strategy after the war literally shaped the next generation of airlifters. The joyous World War II victory soon turned into a desperate losing battle to hold the crumbling empire together. The military designed a series of airlifters able to deliver paratroopers and their equipment to both jungles and rough desert landing strips. The Fairchild C-119, officially known as the Flying Boxcar, popularly called the $19. The C-119's design was ideal for jumpers, with 2 doors, no waiting, between a raised twin-boom tail. Besides Britain's colonial skirmishes, the Boxcar found its way into other fights during the 1950s. October 1950, South Korea. 7 C-119s, along with 40 veteran C-47s, dropped the first paratroopers of the Korean War, 2,900 men and 300 tons of equipment. With the addition of the Hastings, Britain retired the RAF's converted World War II bombers from its airlift fleet. The Hastings carried only 30 jumpers, but cruised faster and farther than the Flying Boxcar, nearly 300 miles an hour for 1,700 miles. The Hastings dropped its jumpers through firefights on Cyprus and in the desert during the Suez Canal crisis of '56. The Blackburn Beverly presented a unique flying profile. Its crew described it as a pregnant guppy with wings. Despite the plane's awkward appearance, its unique design set the standard for the next airlifter generation. The Beverly's raised flight deck meant that it could carry both cargo and paratroopers. Cargo on the lower deck and troopers on the upper. The Argosy featured the same raised flight deck with an additional surprise, rear-mounted clamshell doors. Both the Beverly and the Argosy operated from Borneo's jungle airstrips and rough and rocky runways throughout the Middle East and East Africa. Another airlifter entered service during the 50s, one with unique flying characteristics and capabilities, the Sikorsky S-55 helicopter. The S-55 was the first helicopter to house the engine in the nose instead of the cabin, offering more space for paratroops and equipment than any other chopper. The S-55 first saw combat in the Korean War, a dress rehearsal for the chopper's main stage performance in Vietnam. The chopper's ability to take off and land in tight spots gives it a unique airlift mission, delivering troops right to a battlefield and evacuating the wounded to safety. In Vietnam, airlift strategists would learn many new lessons, like guerrilla warfare. This is a Pathfinder team. C-123 providers and other light aircraft secretly dropped these special forces troops in Mekong Delta forests and highland plateaus. The Pathfinders posted guards, then quickly surveyed landing zones and marked them with flares or ground markers, creating drop targets for paratroops and supplies. Originally designed as a heavy glider, the Provider was converted to powered flight in the early 60s and filled a variety of airlift roles in Vietnam. January 1962, Operation Ranch Hand. The U.S. Army employed Providers to drop Agent Orange and other defoliants, destroying the Viet Cong staging areas for raids on American and South Vietnamese troops. Fighting the Vietnam War made clear the U.S. Air Force's need for newer and larger airlifters. While the next airlift generation was still on the drawing board, Lockheed rushed an interim design into production, the C-141 Starlifter. The C-141 provided crucial long-distance airlift support to American troops in Vietnam, dropping paratroops, ferrying infantry, and evacuating serious casualties to the Philippines, Japan, and Hawaii. This is the C-130 Hercules. Introduced during the Vietnam War, the Herc was the first American airlifter designed specifically for carrying heavy cargo. Its advanced features made it the favorite of airlift crews from Da Nang to Dakar, and from Vietnam to Desert Shield. Improved avionics and navigation equipment helped the Herc drop supplies right on target. It handled Navy SEAL teams and their boats, and pinpointed supply drops to special forces without a hitch. C-130s also carried jumpers by the bushel, seeding the skies over Vietnam with parachutes. Gunfire from Viet Cong guerrillas often made it dangerous for the Herc to land. Although graceful in flight, on the ground it was one big sitting duck. So, to deliver cargo that couldn't be dropped from great heights, the Air Force developed the Low Altitude Parachute Extraction System, or LAPES. Kicking up a dust storm, the C-130 releases a parachute that yanks out a heavy load lashed to a pallet. The plane delivers its load without touching the ground and flies safely away. The Herc was good at its job, very good, but it was about to be dwarfed by the new kid on the block, the C-5 Galaxy, the plane Lockheed was designing when it delivered the C-141. The C-5 serves as a heavy-duty, long-range transport for the U.S. Air Force's Air Mobility Command. In 1968, the gigantic C-5 set a new world cargo record, nearly 380 tons. It takes landing gear with 28 wheels to handle the enormous weight at takeoff and landing. C-5s can be loaded by the standard rear ramp or through the plane's upward hinged nose. The C-5 was America's premier airlifter through the 70s and a challenge to America's Cold War nemesis, the Soviet Union. Eclipsed by Western airlift since those experiments of the 1930s, the Soviet Union answered the C-5's challenge in 1971 at the Paris Air Show, revealing its new military transport, the Aleutian IL-76, codenamed Candid by NATO. Candid is modeled on the C-141 Starlifter, though the Soviet plane is much smaller than the Starlifter and substantially slower than both the Herc and the C-5. Designed to operate in the harsh Siberian climate, Candid flies in all weather conditions and temperatures. Candid's cargo drop technique is adapted from the Soviet space program. The plane drops the load from a great height with only a single canopy to slow it, until a retro rocket fires just before impact. The C-141 and Candid led parallel careers. Both planes Reliable and hardworking, both planes adept at cargo and personnel assignments. And as the C-141 anticipated the C-5, Candid prepared the way for its successor. Bigger than Candid, and even the C-5, is the AN-124 Ruslan, codenamed Condor. Incredibly, Condor's wingspan is larger than the C-5 is long, and its payload capacity is nearly half again as large. Like the C-5, Condor is designed for carrying heavy equipment, which can include battle tanks and tactical nuclear missiles in their transporters. Even fully loaded, weighing over 400 tons, Condor can land on a frozen Siberian lake.
Scratches here, scratches there. Watch out, they're everywhere. You'd have to pay a professional hundreds of dollars to repair this damage, right? Not anymore. Now you can make scratches disappear without spending a dime. Introducing CBX 3000, the professional secret that makes scratches disappear in just seconds. Stay tuned and you'll find out how you can get this revolutionary new scratch remover absolutely free. We're giving the first 1,000 callers a chance to get CBX 3000 absolutely free just for filling out a simple survey to help us launch CBX 3000 in our retail stores. CBX 3000 bonds with your car's finish to remove marks and scratches and restore your car's showroom finish. Watch how it works. Just rub CBX 3000 into the scratch, buff it, and the scratch is gone. The secret's in this new revolutionary formula. CBX 3000 is made up of a superfine crystalline matrix that bonds with the surface of the paint to eliminate scratches, swirl marks, water spots, even road tar and paint. Watch what happens when we key this new car's surface. Would you do that? But right now with CBX 3000, just buff it on and the scratch is gone. And CBX 3000 works on all color cars and all kinds of finishes. And here's the best part. Call right now and you can get CBX 3000 absolutely free. When you receive your CBX 3000, you'll be asked to fill out a simple survey form. And you'll receive a free bottle of this revolutionary new scratch remover just for participating. You'll get CBX 3000. And as a special bonus for ordering today, you'll receive a free 30-day trial membership in America's Advantage Discount Buying Club, guaranteeing you the lowest prices in the country on more than 250,000 products and services. Pick up the phone and be one of the first 1,000 callers to get your free CBX 3000 today.
I just saved $250, and best of all, it's free.
To get your free CBX 3000, have your credit card ready. All you'll pay is $4.95 shipping and handling, and call the number on your screen. You'll get your free CBX 3000, plus your 30-day free trial membership in the America's Advantage Discount Buying Club. Sorry, no CODs or personal checks. Don't delay. Call and get your CBX 3000 scratch remover today.
Tonight, road test the Acura 3.2 CLS type. Then travel the world of racing on Motorsport Mondial and get down and dirty with half of Tampa stock car racing. That's Auto Week at 7 Eastern, Motorsport Mondial at 7:30, and half of Tampa at 9.
Condor entered service in the mid-1980s, challenging the U.S. to do better. It did. This is the newest U.S. airlifter, the C-17 Globemaster III. Designed with technology far in advance of any other airlifter in the world. Technology advanced enough to meet Air Mobility Command's transport and air assault requirements well into the 21st century. Though smaller than the C-5, the C-17 carries the same payload. Highly maneuverable on the ground, the C-17 needs only about half the C-5's takeoff distance. The same payload weight and only half the takeoff distance? How is that possible? The C-17's special powered lift system directs airflow from the exhaust through slotted flaps in the wing, producing a terrific amount of lift on takeoff and landing. The resulting steep, low-powered approach provides excellent low-altitude flying, perfect for using lapes to make precise cargo deliveries. The C-17's engines are positioned far forward on the wing to avoid FOD, foreign object damage, from dust and dirt kicked up on the unfinished airstrips. A rock sucked through the intake can wreck the multi-million-dollar jet engine. Advanced cockpit controls allow pilots to fly the enormous planes in close formations. And to release self-defense measures when threatened by an enemy missile. Cargo handling on the C-17 is just as unique and specialized. These rollers on the cargo bay floor match the rollers on these large pallets, or K-loaders. K for the 10,000 pounds each pallet holds. The K-loaders make it easy for a loadmaster and cargo specialist team to fill the cavernous cargo area. The cargo bay rollers can also be flipped over to form a smooth floor for loading both wheeled and tracked vehicles. Or installing sidewall and seating for infantry or paratroopers. Modern technology has enhanced the traditional airlifter mission, making it possible to deliver more cargo more exactly, whenever and wherever needed. For today's paratroopers, the human part of the airlifter mission, modern technology means being ready to jump anywhere in the world on a moment's notice. Preparing for this mission requires psychological training and physical workouts that challenge every jumper to the limit. It also means integrating the training of American paratroopers with those from other nations. Here, NATO paratroopers train with America's 82nd Airborne, practicing the jumps necessary to qualify for their wings, and the landing techniques essential to saving their lives when confronting a heavily defended jump site. The need for multinational training extends beyond the paratroopers to the entire sequence of events required for successful airlifter missions. That's why the U.S. Air Force participates with forces from around the world in regular exercises, like Bright Star. This chopper crew loads its own aircraft for the long trip to Egypt. En route, flight crews in the C-5 and KC-10 tanker perform mid-air refueling. Mid-air refueling lets airlifters fly continuously from home base to their ultimate destination. Today, the only limit on the airlifter's flight range is the crew's endurance. Safely on the ground, the C-5's nose swings open, the ramp lowers to the ground, and the chopper crew unloads its aircraft. All the airlifters participate in Bright Star, even the Herc, now refitted for airborne CCC, command, control, and communication. This Herc will soar above the practice area, collecting intelligence and directing air-based ground assault exercises. A C-141 hosts a plane load of paratroopers, preparing to practice their jumps. On approach to the jump site, the side hatch opens. The sky rushes in. The deflector gives the jumpers a bit of protection against the wind. Smoke marks the jump site.